Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to my channel, Try This Dog Podcast. I'm your host, Leo. And for those of you that are new, thank you for coming and checking it out. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, share. And here we go. So I'd like to kind of touch up on my last video where I spoke about the night I got arrested and I got tried as an adult. I got declined. But I kind of want to go back in time a little bit to kind of explain how my lifestyle, the way I chose the lifestyle that I chose at the growing up. So I want to, back in 2001, I want to say I was about 14 years old, 14 years old, 2001. I was skipping school that day, and I thought it was like a regular day. You know, my mom went to work, and I acted like I was going to school, came back, boom, stayed at home. But this day was I think this is one of the major events in my life that changed the course of my life. The way that I thought, the way that I had self-doubt, the way that everything started building up inside of me as far as this anger and why people have what they have and I don't. I want to touch up on that for maybe there's some young kids out there that maybe feel a similar way. And man, you just gotta. I know sometimes in the moment I didn't realize, I was a kid, so for me to give myself a self-motivational talk was pretty much impossible, So anyways, 2001, I'm skipping school. Hear a knock on the door. I look out, peep out. It's a cop. I start thinking to myself like, oh man, what the hell? Damn, I'm gonna get in trouble, right? So I go and hide underneath the bed. I don't answer the door, and I'm thinking they're gonna leave. Nope, they keep knocking. So I look out again, and then there's some people behind this cop. It looked like normal people. They had button up, tie, but I thought they were gonna leave. Hit for like 20-30 minutes. They didn't leave. Kept knocking. So I finally answered the door. I thought it was gonna be about me skipping school, but the cop, he goes, where's your mom? Where's your mom and dad? And I tell him, my mom's working. My dad lives in California. At the time, my dad was living in California, and my mom was working out in the fields. Shout out to those people that work in the fields every day, man. That stuff it's not easy. So anyways, I'm skipping school. I finally answer the door. They ask me where my parents are at. I tell them I don't know. And this guy tells me, right, I'm 13, 14 years old. He tells me, well, these people behind me, they're the bankers. They're here to repossess your house. At the time, or not at the time, but maybe years prior, my dad had gotten my mom a nice trailer. Took out a trailer out, bought a trailer. After my dad left, there wasn't not enough funds to pay for everything, so they came to repossess it. And I'm sitting there, and he tells me, you got 30 minutes to take what you can. You know what I'm saying? You're telling this to a 13-year-old man. Like, you're telling me I got 30 minutes to take what I can out of this house where it's filled with memories, filled with pictures, our baby pictures. I mean, my brother was there. I got two brothers that are big sports fans. I mean, they had basketball, football pictures, all kinds of stuff, man. So anyways, I'm over here screaming. I'm a kid, man. I'm scrambling. I'm just grabbing clothes, throwing it in there, grabbing all kinds of different miscellaneous objects. And I'm just like, I don't know what to do. So they finally get a hold of my mom, and she goes to the bank, or she comes up to the house, and there's nothing they can do. They're like, we've given you plenty of time to pay the debts or whatever, what have you. And my mom was the look on my mom's face was just devastating, man. And that was something that changed the course of my life, right? Because after that, we would jump from one place to another. We would go rent a place, couldn't have no money. We'd get evicted. I mean, I'm talking about, we probably lived in 50% of the houses in that town, and going to school poor, going to school with all these things going on in your life, man. That's why a lot of people that remember me from the school days, I mean, I was a rough and tough kid, man. I wouldn't say I was a bully, but I was pretty much borderline. And it wasn't due to them or nothing that they did. I was just like, hey, man, sometimes there'd be people that'd make fun of me. You know what I'm saying? I kept all that stuff inside. I was just like, all right, man, it's all good. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I wanted to talk about this, because that's the moment I started kind of leaving school, because I was like, man, I don't fit in here. You know what I'm saying? I don't. But as I got older, it's a beautiful thing not to fit in. You know what I'm saying? It's just different, man, when you finally realize that being the same as everybody else is not something that somebody should aspire to do. You know what I'm saying? Everybody should aspire to be themselves, to be the individuals that they are, because at the end of the day, when we're born, we're one of one, man. There's no one of two, one of three. There's one of one. I mean, unless you're a twin, right? But so yeah, man, I went to so we went through that. and bouncing around trailer to trailer. It was hard, man, especially on a kid's psyche. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's when I was really going in the streets really hard. You know what I'm saying? I'm partying, I'm doing all kinds of things. I mean, like I said in my past video, I mean, we were committing all kinds of acts of violence, man. So by the time I went to prison, I was already kind of programmed for that stuff, man. I was already had a leg up, right? Like, but it doesn't make it any less terrifying when I went to prison. Like I said in my last video, man, I was petrified. That's no lie. So growing up like that, man, I think that a lot of us, we have this thing inside of us that makes us so insecure. It makes us insecure to talk about our feelings. It makes us insecure to talk about certain things that have transpired in our lives, and I think that's the wall that we need to break down sometimes in order to be there for one another. And that's what I try to do with the people that I fuck with out here. I try to be there for them. Now, if they don't want to listen, man, all I can do is tell them, my story, and hopefully they gain something out of that. That's like, man, I don't want to go through that, man. Like, my boys are here telling me exactly what it's like, and that's just something I wouldn't want for people, So anyways, let's go back to the current time. Let's go back to where I left off on my first video. We had just got sent up. We got sent up to this youthful offender program. This was in 04. We got sent up in 04. Me, my crimey Oscar, my crimey Ray had gone up a month before, so he was already in this program called the Youthful Offender Program, which is up in Column Bay, aka Gladiator School. That's what they used to call it. You could Google it if you don't believe me. Column Bay, Washington, Gladiator School. So that's where they sent us. That's where they sent kids that were declined, that were tried as adults. I mean, I was there with a 12-year sentence. My homie Ray 13, Oscar 9, but there was kids there, man, that had 80 years, and they were 15 years old, 14 years old. So it's like that saying, man, somebody always has it worse, somebody always has it better. It just depends on how you handle your situation. That's how you're gonna make yourself as a man. So if we get there, and that was my first experience, man. When I got to Column Bay in 04, we got to Column Bay. Me and Oscar, we went up there together. So I was glad for that. That I had somebody there going through the same experience with me. We leaned on each other like, hey, man, whatever happens, I got you and you got me. We're from the same town. He's my crimey, so I felt pretty good. No less scared, but I still felt pretty good, man. So we get there, right, and we get to Column Bay. I mean, it's a long bus ride, because when you first go to prison, you leave the county jail, you go to a receiving unit, which is in Olympia, in Shelton, and everybody goes there no matter what. You're not skipping that. That's where you go to get classified, where they tell you what prison you're going to go to, if you're high violent, non-violent, you know what I'm saying? But with us, that was the first time that I had been in solitary confinement, me and Oscar. Because we were kids, we were 16 at the time, so they had to put us in solitary confinement in order to keep us away from the adults. You know what I'm saying? And I'm thinking to myself, when I first got in there, when they put us in these cells in Shelton, in the hole, I mean, man, it's a white room, a fluorescent white room, a fluorescent light that never turns off. You know what I'm saying? And I'm thinking that I'm there with a bunch of other kids, like, because they put Oscar in a different unit, and they put me in a different unit, so I'm sitting there thinking, oh, man, we're right here in the section where there's, hell no, man. I was there talking to a 50-year-old man. He's telling me, oh, you're going up to the Bay. Like, hey, man, good luck. You know what I'm saying? But he was a cool dude, an older dude. I met up with him later on in my journey through prison. He's a solid guy, man. Excuse me. So we get up there, and that was the first time that I had been around African Americans, you know what I'm saying, like the black brothers, I had never really been, but I grew up on that type of culture, you're talking Menace to Society, Friday, you know what I mean, the music, Tupac and all that, man, like we grew up on that, me and my brothers, man, so I got major respect for that community. But what I'm saying is, that was the first time, like, I come from a small town in Washington, so there's not really too much diversity there. So I'll get there, and we walk into the unit. They let us out. My boy Ray's coming from school, right? Boom. He comes back. He comes up to my door, and he's like, "Hey, man, what's going on?" He's really happy to see me, man. We had just got there. Hadn't seen him in months, man, and so that was pretty cool when I seen him. So when we come out the cells, there's tables with like 6 seats to the right. There's like 2-3 tables, and to the left, and in the middle there's a staircase to go up to the top tiers. That's what separates the day room. That's what they call it. It's a day room. That means, that's where they let us out to come out for a little while, play cards, drink a coffee or whatever. So on the left side was African Americans, and then on the right side was all, the Mexicans, you know what I'm saying, the natives, the Samoans. But a lot of the times, back then it wasn't so much racist, but there were still lines you couldn't cross. It wasn't like when you really actually hit the penitentiary. So we go in there, and my homie Ray and a couple other cats, they started breaking it down to me and Oscar, like, hey man, this is our time to use the ice machine. This is our time to use the microwave. Don't do this, don't do that, what have you. You know what I'm saying? And so we're like, yeah, okay, cool, man, cool. So we're going through all that, and we eventually started getting too comfortable in there. We started like, all right, man, we're doing our time. This is what we got to do. We ended up getting into it with this dude, and they ended up taking all of us to the hole. Me, Ray, Oscar, a couple of the black African brothers that were cool with us, from Seattle. They took us all to the hole under investigation, man. And that was the first time not the first time, but where I actually stayed quite a bit of length of time. And that was only 3 months that I did it at that little stretch there. And it was all of us, me, Ray, Oscar, a couple other cats that we knew. Man, but it was torture, man. I'm talking about when you're sitting in there, man, and all you have is books, and you're coming off from the streets, man. Like, we ain't really into reading, you know what I'm saying? Like, but that was something that always helped me escape, especially Oscar. Oscar was always reading books, man, and that's what got him through that experience there. But man, it was torture, man. It was crucial, you know what I'm saying? You only get an hour out, so you got to wait that hour to use the phone, call your parents, call your people, see how they're doing. And if they don't answer, everybody's working, man. That's it. You don't got another hour to go make another phone call. You got to wait till the next day. So, that was the first little taste of that we had in solitary confinement. Well, back in 05, I want to say late 04. In late 04, they started saying that they didn't want that program there at that prison no more, Column Bay, the Youthful Offender Program. They started saying like, nah, we can't have these kids up here intermingled with all the adults. So they had some type of contract with the juvenile facility out in Chehalis called Green Hill. So they sent us all out there, little by little. They sent, till we turned 18, they would send us to the penitentiary. So they sent us to Green Hill, and Green Hill was wilder than Column Bay YOP, because these kids, man, you got kids in there, man, they're just all kids of all ages, running wild. We were buck, and we felt right in, we went right in. We went head in, and so we were there probably, I was there maybe 6 months, but I kept getting into, I got an assault, I caught an assault there at Green Hill. They ended up sending me to the hole. But when you're tried as an adult and you go there to Green Hill, as men are mingled with the juveniles, when you go to the hole, they're going to send you to the solitary confinement for adults in Shelton. So that's where they would send me. I'd go over there, do a little program like 6 months. I went there for like 6 months. By the time I got back, I was already going to turn 18. So they were like, hey, man, well, that you're going to turn 18. You're going to go now to another prison. And Ray he'd already got sent up, if I'm not mistaken. He already got sent up. He's like a few months older than me. So he got sent up, and he got sent to Airway Heights. You know what I'm saying? And that's when I got sent there. And so when I got sent to Airway Heights, and I seen Ray, so this is when we actually got to real prison, right? We actually got to the real prison. This was when we really started doing time. We turned 18, and so and we got there, and we have always hung out with a certain group in our town, right? We were never really into gangs like that. We weren't gang members. We hung around certain gang members, we had close ties to them. So the decision that I made when I got to prison, it wasn't like, hey man, I'm afraid I'm gonna join these guys, but maybe it was too, man. Maybe there was some form of fear that's like, hey man, look, we can't do this ourselves, man. We got to get with somebody that we're gonna have backup. We're gonna back them up. So I ended up meeting a couple dudes from one side, and we got to, they knew people that I knew. And boom, it just happened like that. You know what I'm saying? We started running with these guys. But they took us in like family. You know what I'm saying? They took us in like family. But the thing was that with that lifestyle, man, with that choice that we made, it came with a lot of rules and regulations. You know what I'm saying? It was military shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? That you ain't gonna take a nap during the day. We're gonna get up at 7 in the morning. and we're gonna roll up our bunks, have our shoes all ready for breakfast, and we're not gonna lay down for the rest of the day. We're gonna read books, we're gonna work out, but you cannot take a nap. It's very military. So what happened was, so we ended up doing that, man. We ended up getting really close to these guys. We ended up getting really close to them. They took a really liking to us because, like I said, man, we were head in first, man. We're like, hey, man, whatever we got to do, we're gonna do in order for us to stick out, for people to respect us. That's how we hit the gate. You know what I'm saying? And so I ended up I stayed like that for a little while. You know what I'm saying? We started getting used to the routine in prison, the way it's gonna be, because in certain facilities, man, in certain prisons, the program is run different. It's not the same in every facility. You might go to a facility where there's certain rules and regulations that don't exist at another one. So it's very hard to get sent from one prison to another, which I did a lot throughout my incarceration. They would kick me out of prisons for the assaults that I would commit. But later on my journey, as I tell it, you guys will hear about it. So we were right there at Airway Heights, and so like I said, we started getting used to the program. We started getting even more close to the organization that we were running with at the time. And I ended up getting caught with some bud. There was a homie that started bringing in some weed, and somebody told her, I don't know how it happens, man. That's how it usually happens in prison. Somebody gets caught with a little something, man. They're too scared to go to solitary confinement. So I had like a little under an eighth, man. I had a little bit under an eighth. They came and brought the dog. Shit, man. It was my first time that I was in a situation like that. So I'm like, oh shit, man. This ain't good, right? Like, and so they called me to the sergeant's office. And at this time, when I was right there at Heights, I got really close to a lot of white dudes, man, that were solid, man, that were three of them that I really messed with really tough. They were killers, they were lifers. Shout out to Kyle Johnson, Mark Falls, and Scotty Pierce. That those guys were real old school dudes, man, that were really schooling me in the ways of prison, about respect, about how to carry myself, about usually the loudest one in the room is usually the one that's the weakest, right? So that's what those guys were on, man. And then I started working out, started really getting on a program to where it's like I started carrying myself as a convict, as opposed to an inmate. And there's a big difference. So anyways, man, I get jammed up. They came and jammed me up. They took me to the sergeant's office, and the dude that was like I forget what they call him, man, but he's like he comes in with the dog. He's like a little drug dude, man. He comes with the dog, tries to find the dope. And he has me in the office, and he's asking me, he's like, hey, man, all I need is one lead. Just give me one lead. I'll let you go. Just give me one name that I can UA, that he's going to pop for. He's going to be hot, pretty much. He's going to have marijuana in his system. But what, man, shit, man, I had already been schooled. I'm like, man, even on the streets, you know what I'm saying? Ain't no telling. We're going to ride it out. So sure enough, man, I get, they sent me to the hole right there. Boom. They charged me with a 603, which is a uncontrolled substance. It's an infraction. It's pretty much like breaking the law in there, man, So they ended up, so I ended up sitting in the hole there for a little while. And then after that, they ended up shipping me out to Monroe, I believe. I think I went to Monroe. At the time. And Ray was already over there. And so I ended up going to Monroe. And like I said, in each prison is different. In each prison, it's different rules and regulations. What at this certain prison at this certain time, there was a lot of gangs there that walked the same yard. Like, there was no war. Obviously, there's always tension, but there's no war. And everything was cool. But then certain individuals, man, took it upon themselves to crack something off. And then ever since then, it was a free for all, man. It was just anywhere and everywhere, right? So that's what I went into when I went to Column Bay, when I went to Monroe. So I got sent up to Monroe, and that's where really my assaultive behavior, when it was really like, hey, man, all right, man, I'm in this to win it. You know what I'm saying? It's anybody and everybody. So I'm at Monroe, and this is the funny thing, man. You see some dudes in there, and so at this time in Monroe, it was already what, maybe 06, I believe. 06, 07, maybe at the end of 06, and there's dudes, man, that I ran into in there, right? That looked like straight up out of the movies type of cholo type of dude, man. Just he looked the part, right? He looked the part good. So like I said, man, like I would like not to reiterate this, but like I said, we when we went to prison, we're like, hey man, we're gonna do what we got to do to earn our respect, right? And so there was a rule at the time that, hey man, one of the ops comes on this yard, we can't let him walk. Is one of us, and they had we have this list that goes by order of who's gonna do what when. You know what I'm saying? If your number's up, man, it's your time to go handle some business. You feel me? Well, sure enough, I wasn't there. I was probably there maybe a month. Yeah, I was probably there maybe a month in Monroe. It's over there by Seattle, and so they ended up, an op ended up going on the yard. And let me say this again, man. I don't gangbang. I've never gangbang. I'm not a gangbanger. You know what I'm saying? I did what I had to do to survive and to earn my reputation in there. I've messed with people from both sides. They both respect me. You know what I'm saying? And that's just the character that I am. The way I carry myself. So anyways, so I'm in Monroe. We're out there. It's the softball season. So we're out there. There's this guy's number comes up. You know what I'm saying? It's his time. Like, hey man, and this dude, like I said, he's from California. Looks the part. You know what I'm saying? You're thinking this dude's a straight killer, man. Man, and this guy, I've never seen somebody just be himself so quick, man. You know what I'm saying? And it was shocking to me because I'm like, hey man, I'm supposed to be looking at these cats, right? And I'm supposed to be like, hey man, this is who I aspire to be, right? And as flawless as that mentality is, that's what it was at the time for me. And so I'm looking at this guy, man. I'm like, man, what are you talking about, right? He's there talking about, man, I got a visit coming. I got my family, my kids, right? And that's all good, man. That's not hating on nobody's family, nobody's kids. But what I'm saying is, ain't nobody was worrying that on the streets, right? Nope. Like I told the homie, I was like, hey, man, this dude wasn't worrying about his family on the streets. All of a sudden, he's talking about visits and that. Yeah, I told my homie right then and there, like, hey, don't even worry about it. I got it. We're out in the yard. I'm like, hey, homie, don't even trip. I got it. When we rack up right now, we go to our cells right now, because in Monroe, there's a 4-tier level. 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to the top. So then the guy lived on the 4th tier all the way to the top. So I told my homie's like, nah, man, it's all good. It's not your time, right? And I'm like, hey, man, it's all good. I got it. Don't even worry about it. And all right. So the homie said, okay. So they call Yarden. Boom. My heart's racing. Man. This is the first time I'm gonna do some dirt. You know what I'm saying? And it's like in the streets, man. That adrenaline. It's like it's got to be done. So we're going into the yard in Monroe. You got to get past search and everything before you go back into your cell. And they ended up. So here we go. We end up going. I kind of stay maybe 5 people behind him. 5 people behind the line. I want to keep a little distance so he doesn't think that we're gonna get him. You know what I'm saying? But once we got up to the 4th tier, he's walking to his cell. It's a long corridor. You got to walk all the way down there. I get right behind him. I start rushing past these people, and they know what time it is. They just step to the side, man. And I don't. As soon as the dude turned around, I just I gave it to him. Started giving them the business. So we started getting them up. The dude tries throwing me off the tier. He tries throwing me off the 4th tier in Monroe. But I don't know if it was just adrenaline in him, because on the tiers there's chain link fences. You can't throw somebody off of it. They put them there to prevent for that. So this dude's trying to throw me off the tier. Well, while we're getting down, there's a CO that he's just a fucking asshole, man. He's just he's just an asshole. He runs up there. He runs up there to stop the fight. Well, in Washington State, the guards cannot get involved in a fight or anything unless they have another person there with them, another guard. So this guy's already breaking protocol. I mean, I didn't know this at the time because, I'm getting down with this guy. But what happened was, in the course of me getting down with this dude, the guard came and grabbed my shoulder and he spun me around. Well, me not knowing that it's a guard, I thought it was one of his homies or something, man. So I turned around, I blasted him in the face, but he ended up tripping. When I blasted him, he tripped on his shoe and fell backwards, grabbed me by my shirt, carried me down. I fell on top of him. Man, I already hit him, man. I was like, I'm already done. So I gave him, I think, like maybe 2 more shots. Bam, bam. Well, already by that time, man, they had already obviously called for backup, so they ran up there maybe like 9 deep, 10 deep. You know what I'm saying? Got on me, man, put me all kinds of headlocks. They hog-tied me, carried me down there, treated me like shit because I assaulted an officer. So I'm sitting in the hole right there at Monroe, and it's a little bit different in the hole right there at Monroe because they actually have literal dog cages, kennels outside. So like when you're in the hole there and you go outside for yard, they put you in a kennel like a dog, and all you can do is walk around there. You know what I'm saying? Do some workouts, or they put you out there with like 4 other people. I mean, obviously in different kennels, but yeah, man, you get the point. So I go to my hearing. For that for those two assaults that I committed, and the sergeant, she tells me, man, you're lucky, man. She's like, the only reason we're not charging you like as a civilian is because he broke protocol and he was supposed to wait for backup, right? So they let me off. They let me off of that. They still charged me with it, like as far as inside the prison, giving me that infraction. But at that time, my mom was coming. I mean, my mom lived like 3 hours away from there, you know, and she was supposed to come visit me, and that was what meant so much to me, right? That's like, man, this guy's over here, and that was a flaw in me. That's a flaw in my character, that I gave up visitations with my mother just to go put in some work for dudes, man. You know that later on when we get into my story, we'll address that, how much regret I've had for the choices that I've made. So my mom, you know, they when you go to the hole like that, they won't let you have to be in there, I don't know how long, maybe 3 days or something, then you can give visitation. So they didn't let my mom visit me, man. She drove all the way up there for nothing. You know, I talked to her later on, you know, and apologized, and I never told my mom these things, right? Like, most of my family, I never told them like, hey man, I'm in the hole for assaulting a cop or something like that, man. It's just something I didn't do. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, later on, I ended up putting 2 and 2 together. But anyways, so lo and behold, maybe I'm in the hole maybe 3 months on that, right? I'm in the hole for 3 months. So I get out the hole from that on I want to say a Wednesday. I got out of the hole on a Wednesday. You know, I go back to the main line where everybody's at. You know, all the homies are at. They come to give me some soups, you know, throw a little spread because I've been in the hole for a little while. And the spread is you know, they make some nachos or something like that, and they pass it on. But the thing is that when I got out the hole there was another incident that occurred. Like maybe, so I got out on Wednesday. I got out of the hole on Wednesday. By that Friday, so I'm going to Chow. I'm going to Chow on a Friday with one of my homies, and we met up with another homie in the Chow hall, and we ended up sitting down, and all we heard is an op, right? He came flying through the Chow hall, man. Came flying through the Chow hall. He said what he needed to say, man, and just took off on my homie. So we started getting on him, you know what I'm saying? We started beating this dude, and so I go right back to the hole, you know what I'm saying? And my mom's coming because I told her come on Friday because I'll already be out the hole. I want to see you. She comes to visit me again. I'm back in the hole by Friday night, man. And it's you know, so right there is where I'm gonna stop this episode. I hope you guys liked it. I hope you guys comment, like, subscribe, share. You know, I'll be back maybe in a couple days. I'll start dropping videos more frequently. I appreciate you guys for staying with me this long. So until next time, see you guys.